welcome to Writers Airwave Network, a platform where stories come alive through voice behind them. I'm your host, Juan Corrigan, and today we're honored to welcome award-winning author Sue Andrews. After dedicating more than 40 years to public education, Sue Andrews discovered a new passion for storytelling later in life and has since become an accomplished author, an active member of several respected writing organizations, including the Inland Empire California Writers Club and the Diamond Valley Writers Guild. She's also a Jack London Award winner whose work often blends emotional depth, suspense, and powerful human experiences. Today, we'll be discussing her compelling novel, A Killing in the Keys. Set against the tropical beauty and hidden dangers of Key West, the story follows Wade Nevlin, a retired charter boat captain trying to rebuild his life after heartbreaking and personal loss, when he unexpectedly becomes entangled in mystery, romance, and murder after meeting the enigmatic Melina Ruiz. Sue, welcome to Writers Airwave Network. It's truly a pleasure to have you with us today.
Well, thank you, Juan. Thank you for having me. Going to enjoy visiting with you today.
Well, that's good. That's good. We're happy to have you. Sue, what originally inspired you to write A Killing in the Keys?
Well, after I finished my very first book, which was not a novel, it was a memoir, and it was very cathartic because I was reminiscing about painful life experiences back in Florida, where I lived for 20 years before moving to California. And after that was over with, I wanted to leave the past behind, but mainly that book was about the bad experience I left behind. But I wanted to switch it up and go a 180 and write something good that I wanted to remember about Florida, because if I didn't write the good stuff, I would only remember the bad stuff, so to speak. So after living in Florida for 20 years, and I did have some good experiences, and I wanted to switch it around into a novel, and then that became Jacksonville Judas. And when that ended, actually halfway through the series, halfway through the book, I thought, well, this could be a series, because it started in Jacksonville, it ended in Key West, and what better place to start the next book was in Key West. So that's how that came about.
Okay, well, that makes a lot of sense. Now, Key West feels incredible, vivid throughout the novel. What drew you to that setting for this story?
Well, like I said, it was easy because Jacksonville Judas ended there, but I was always fond of, after living in Florida for so long, Key West was one of my favorite cities of all time. It was just magical, so to speak. So we'd been there a few times, and a few years before the book was finished, my husband and I went back, and I wanted to reacquaint myself so everything I wrote about was true, and I wanted to get the smells right, the sounds right, the birds right. I wanted to get everything right, as well as it's a walking city, and that's what I liked about it too. We didn't have to get a car or rent a car. We could walk every place. So, and that just brought back good memories, and that's the reason why I put it there.
Okay. Well, Wade Nevlin is such a layered and emotional grounded character. How did his character first come to life for you?
Well, like I said, he first came to life in Jacksonville Judas, and I knew a lawyer, so I had him be a lawyer at first, and then in that book, his best friend died within the first chapter, and both of he and Michael that was their plan in retirement. They were close to retirement, and they wanted to move to the Keys to become a charter boat company together. But after his friend died, and he had lost not too long before, he had lost his wife, and he just went into a tailspin with drinking, and he lost his job, he lost all respect, and it was kind of from true life experiences. My first husband had a good job. He wasn't a lawyer, but he had a good job. He did want to retire to the Keys, and so, nothing like true life experiences to just change the characters to somebody different. And that's how his his alcoholism came to be. He survived it. He was sober, but he was still in AA and going to meetings in Key West. So, but he wasn't a retired riverboat captain that you said at the beginning. He was actually a retired lawyer who
Okay.
became a riverboat captain in his
Oh,
retirement.
okay. Well, there's
Not
nothing like
riverboat. I
real.
always say that because my husband
Yeah.
was a riverboat captain,
Yeah.
but my ex-husband, but no, he was
Okay.
a charter boat captain.
Well, there's nothing like real life world experiences to put things into a character and stories. So I totally understand.
Yeah.
Now, Wade is dealing with grief, recovery, and rebuilding his life. Was the theme of second chances something you intentionally wanted readers to connect with?
Well, it wasn't, well, actually, it was because he hadn't been married for a long time after his wife passed away. He was too busy rebuilding his life and getting his act back together. And he, one of my girlfriends said, Wade needs a girlfriend. And that was really clicked with me. I go, yeah, he does need a girlfriend. So actually, and it had to be somebody that was totally different than he ever known. It had to really, she really had to attract his attention. And so that's why I put her in the very first chapter, because if you're going
Okay.
to have romance, you can't
That's
have
right.
it at the end of the book. You have to have
Yeah.
it at the beginning of the book. So that's how she came about.
Okay. Well, it makes it more interesting.
I thought
Now,
so. With
Melinda Ruiz.
with a Cuban touch too.
Oh, yes, exactly. Exactly. Now, Melinda Ruiz immediately creates intrigue and mystery from the moment readers meet her. What did you enjoy most about developing her character?
Well, I just kind of took her from some of the Latino girlfriends that I've had in the past. I mean, living in Florida for is 20 years and now living in Southern California for 30 years, it was it was easy for me to glean from some of my Latina friends. A lot
Okay.
of them are bilingual, and
Yeah.
that's where I could use a little bit of the Spanish that I knew, and whatever I didn't know, I'd look up. But because I'm not perfect in Spanish, but I know a little bit of it, and I thought that would be really good for Wade because that would be something that would pique his attention and somebody exotic. I mean, I can't remember how I described his wife in the book, but in my mind, she was short and petite and blonde. And this girl was totally opposite, tall and thin and long black hair. And it was fun making her up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always fun. Now, one of the strongest themes in the novel is trust and uncertainty. How important was psychological tension while writing the story?
Well, living with my ex-husband, I went to AA meetings and learned a little bit about the characteristics and how they mistrust people and they don't even trust themselves. So how can they trust somebody else? And
Makes sense.
they always have a different perspective on things. And I tried to look at it through their eyes, but because of his experience in Jacksonville Judas, and he couldn't, there was a lot of suspects there, so I had to put a lot of suspects here where everybody had a motive to kill who they killed. Let's put
Yeah.
it that way.
Now, the relationship between Wade and Melinda develops while danger constantly surrounds them. How did you balance romance and suspense?
Well, I had a really good editor, and she always told me that, you know, I had a good start on my book and that I would need to have different locations and stuff. And that was easy to do because the Cuban community in South Miami is also in the book as well as Key West. And so suspense could build up because something would be happening in one town while it was happening in another town. And then you have Melinda in danger at one point, and I dropped the chapter right there and then went into what was happening. That was in Key West. And then I went to the next chapter in the next locale, and that worked well for me.
That's good. The opening chapters immediately pull readers into suspense and conflict. Did you always know how you wanted the story to begin?
I think so. I remembered this one spot that my husband and I had gone to, and it was at the marina where a lot of people who own boats would dock. And I thought this is a great locale. And it was also a great locale for Fourth of July because Fourth of July in the Keys is like nothing other. I think that's what drew me to the city in the first place because when I went there the first time with my husband, my current husband, we had the most unbelievable Fourth of July experience. We went out on a charter boat, and what all the other boats that were out, just outside shore, they somehow had their ham radios connected to the radio on shore, and they were playing all this patriotic music. And so it was the shore and the boats were playing it. And they had fireworks going for 30 minutes. I mean, here in
Wow.
California, you're lucky if you see some for longer than 15 because they're afraid
Yeah.
of the fires, But yeah,
That makes
but
sense.
but for 30 minutes, I couldn't
Yeah.
believe it. And we were on this boat. It was such a spectacular night for me.
Mhm.
And that's where I wanted it to be, is at that marina.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good. Now, your storytelling feels very cinematic and visual. When writing scenes, do you picture them almost like a movie unfolding in your mind?
You know, from the first time I started writing and I had that cathartic book in my heart, I really I wanted it to be a movie. So every
Yeah.
time I wrote a book, I wanted it to be a movie. And living
Yes.
close to Hollywood, I was so
Yeah,
tempted or, prayed that one day. I always kept saying, "Oh, it's just going to be one person, it takes is one person." And to get your
that's
books
right.
out,
That's right.
it's who you know and not
It's who you
uh,
know.
so now I know you.
Well, I'm slowly getting there. Slowly getting there. Now, recovery and healing play an important role in Wade's journey, especially through his connection with AA and rebuilding his life. What message did you hope readers would take from the aspect of the story?
Well, I hope if they find themselves in an addiction relationship or in an addiction, I mean, situation, that I hope they will take from this message that one of the things that I wanted to point out that addicts are always afraid of that slip, that one slip. And I know living with it, it's a roller coaster ride for the other person. And I think that if, my hints are not, I didn't write out exactly to seek AA, but I strongly would like to say this now that if it's there if you need it and they'll be there to support you. So that's what I wanted because that's what happened to me. Well, in alcohol and the support group that they have for spouses and
Oh, it's a good organization. It really is.
Mhm.
Now, many readers connect deeply with characters carrying emotional scars while still searching for hope. Do you think Wade is ultimately searching more for peace, redemption, or love?
Well, I think that's what he was searching for. He didn't know it at first when he went to Key West. He just wanted to get away. And I have to bring up the thing. I didn't know how much life imitates art as
Yes.
opposed to backwards. And so I found myself after having other interviews and thinking about this, I go, wow, I'm almost writing another memoir because I'm writing so much of my own experiences. But I
Yeah.
guess that's why it was so fun for me because
Yeah.
it wasn't me having them, it was
Mhm.
other people having them. So sometimes I get away from the question. So if I'm not answering it, let me
No,
know.
no, you're doing good. No, those are fine. Yeah. And I totally understand because a lot of times what happens in your life, it's so much easier to write it down because you've already lived it. So you're not
Yeah.
really, you're kind of like tracing, you know? you're tracing and putting it in another way. So,
Yeah.
in fact, that's how I did my book as well. So,
Yes.
you began your journey writing later in life after decades in public education. What encouraged you to finally pursue storytelling?
It kind of just happened accidentally. Like I said, I always had that book, To Live and Love Again, in my mind, but I was too busy working with deaf children and deaf adults, and I didn't have time. I was involved in their activities and wanting to get them involved. And that was a full-time job. So being first a teacher and then a program specialist and a principal, who went to different school settings where there were deaf children being taught in the mainstream programs. There was a very tight knit camaraderie between all the we call them DHH teachers, deaf and hard of hearing is what that stands for, DHH teachers. And we always called ourselves wannabe actors because we had to act out so many words for them to understand what the sign meant. And so we're actors and storytellers at heart, actually. So I kind of fell into it after getting that bad stuff, bad memories out of my mind. And I felt like my first novel was pretty good, but I wanted the second one to be even better. And I took more of my time. Of course, time in my body got in the way with so many surgeries and heart attacks that took me longer than I wanted it to be. But anyway, that was that story. And then one time I was telling one of my friends about somebody calling me a storyteller. And she says, "Oh, you've always been a storyteller." She said, "Even you would write pen letters, to me when we were both in college." She says, you always wrote long letters. In fact, I had somebody at one of my church when there was some story to talk about, and they had to cut me off because I was talking too long. So, but I do
Well,
like a good story, and I have had plenty of lifetime experiences for
I was
sure.
just gonna say that's a lot of experience in education and also in, like you say, wannabe type actors because you could have done that since you've practiced a lot on it. So that's good.
Yeah,
Now,
in fact, our California Writers Club a couple of years ago, somebody had the idea to have, and it was right after, I think it was right after my third heart attack, and I wanted to support the actor, I mean the writers in the club who wanted to put on this short little play, but they had me as the lead character, and I was at that point in time, I was wearing wigs because I had no hair on my head either. I had cancer hit me at the same time of my fifth heart attack. And, but anyway, I pushed through it and they says, "Oh, you were so great. You were so animated." And yeah, my acting debut was in that play.
that's amazing. Now, winning the Jack London Award was a meaningful achievement. What did that recognition mean to you personally as an author?
Well, actually, I have to explain that. It has my writing has nothing to do with that award. Actually, the award was given to me professionally for my dedication to the club, like things that I just explained. And I worked as the state board rep because there's 22 branches of the California Writers Club within the whole
Oh, wow.
state. And I did get an award by being honored. Not very many, there's probably well, at that point in time, there were 22,000 members. Now, all members can apply to be in this literary review, but not everybody wants to get in. Not everybody likes the rejection letters. And so, but I forget how many, it was in 2021, I was awarded to go into that book, and not very many people from my club had gone in it. So that professionally was one of my highlights. And personally, to me, it just meant that and another story was when I first started writing, and people told me, you have 2 master's degrees. Writing is going to be easy for you. And then after I joined the club, and then got in a critique group because I didn't know where to start. I said, no, writing a book was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. My
Yes.
degrees in education had nothing to do with it, you know? So, and then I got to tell you another sidebar that as far as my writing is concerned, when I was in high school, and this helped me out as I was a principal and then a program specialist
Okay.
mentoring other teachers. I had this in freshman year, I was in an honors English class, and this guy wanted to show how strict he was how strict he was. And he
Mhm.
said, now I'm going to pass back all your papers after I make the assignment and I've checked them. And the person who gets the lowest grade is going to get their paper back first. Well, guess who got their paper back first? Me.
Mm.
And the way he said it,
Yeah.
he like threw down the paper on my desk and said,
Wow.
but ignorance is bliss, huh, Shireen? Well,
Mm.
Shireen was my maiden name.
Mm.
And that phrase stuck with me through high school, through college, and even grad school. I thought I couldn't write. So,
Mm.
but then when I would get my papers back with A's on them, I go, they don't know what they're talking about. Mr. Staley said I couldn't write. And then and then when I
Well,
was in very first day of the critique group and we came back, we were supposed to come back with a chapter of our book or
mhm.
the first chapter. And oh my gosh, there was a young man in that class and I didn't know at the time to use a was word and not an action word like a be verb. I mean, I must have had 12 words called WAS on that paper, and I had 12 red circles on there, plus other things. And I go, see, Mr. Staley was right. I can't write.
I'll tell you
But
what,
just
you show them. You
yeah,
definitely show them.
but being I had perseverance and I was gonna write this book no matter what it took.
Yeah.
So it
That's
took
good.
lots of I took online classes and I
Mhm.
took another class from Jerry Jenkins, you know, the author of the Left Behind series.
Yes.
He had
Yes.
my novel blueprint, and
Okay.
I really recommend that to anybody. He brings it back every so many years, and that really helped me do the novel. It was the
Okay.
critique group that helped me do the memoir, but it was my novel Blueprint from Jerry Jenkins that helped me
Okay.
put it together, the novels.
Okay. Now, on your experiences, traveling and volunteering seems to bring authenticity and a compassion into your storytelling. How have you, how have your life experiences influenced your writing style?
I think that's because everywhere I travel, I journal and I write things down so I don't forget what I saw,
Okay.
what I smelled, all those things. And I think that really helped me to remember the place rather than a picture.
That's a
So
good idea.
I think that's all I have to say about that was just journaling and just being a storyteller on paper
Yeah,
with by every place I went.
that's a very good idea. And so far, it's worked out.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
has.
that's good. Finally, what do you hope readers feel after finishing A Killing in the Keys?
Well, I hope they get, and all my books are strongly with, there's faith involved and there's, like I said, a determination to never give up. I know in Jacksonville Judas, he strongly wanted to find out the real killer of his best friend, and he never gave up. And I think Wade was the same way too. So, and me as a survivor, once they know me personally, which through these interviews they will, is that I never give up either. And you know, for a fact, I mean, 3 weeks ago I was attacked by two shepherd dogs, and then a week after that I get my sixth heart attack.
Wow,
So,
that's amazing. Yeah, that's just totally amazing. You've come a long way on that. Wow,
and 32 surgeries altogether.
that
I mean,
that's incredible.
not all of them were major, but And last year I broke my foot. I broke my first bone for the first time. And so A Killing in the Keys came out a little bit later than I had hoped, but that was another drawback with being in a wheelchair 2 months and a foot boot for a month and a long time. But it helped me with not having any surgery. So that was good. The doctor said if I stayed off my foot that long, it would heal by itself, and it did.
Well, you're a true survivor on that aspect.
Yeah.
Well, Sue, thank you so much for joining us today on Writers Airway Network. It's been a pleasure learning more about your inspiration, emotion, and suspense behind A Killing in the Keys, and hearing more about your remarkable writing journey. To our viewers and listeners, be sure to explore Sue Andrews' work and experience the mystery, romance, and intrigue waiting inside A Killing in the Keys. This has been a Writers Airway Network, where authors share the stories behind the stories. I am Juan Corrigan. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.